Hey, Andy,
Hi, Tracy.
we're back again, and I want to talk to you about a couple of things today. We'll do a check on how I'm doing with the delta function that you taught me. Spoiler alert, not very well. But I'm also super interested in having you walk us through the heart check system that you set up, and you've actually been practicing, right? You've been
Yeah.
implementing it.
Yeah. So I've been giving it a go the last 2 weeks since we last spoke. I originally only set it up kind of because you were looking to do it. I hadn't really thought too much about it, but then obviously since we chatted last time, I've been running it to kind of check that it did actually kind of work in practice. And I've actually found it to be another helpful little practice that literally takes moments to do, but it just gives me that, it's just like nice little check-in, and it just helps me notice what's going on. And so I'll show you how that's been working, and I think I can do more with it than I've done so far. So I can show you what's what.
Yeah.
But maybe let's check in with your failing to do note to my next day self with the delta then.
Yeah. When you taught me that the delta dit thing took everything over, that helped a lot. And I did it for a few days that way. But I think what happens is when I use the delta function, there it is right up the top. But if I use the delta function on a couple of things, other things are also at the top of the next day. And it's just too stressful for whatever reason to open my daily notes and not be quite sure where my eyes are supposed to go.
Yeah, which I think that's the important thing. Really, is it's what's nice about Rome is there's no absolute hard and fast way. We kind of do get these multiple ways of doing things. So if it's not working for you, then there's no point forcing anything. I like having a few things right there as soon as I open my Rome, because it's just one fewer decision I have to make. So I think I tweeted something yesterday, like when I was talking about some of the discipline stuff and some of the things I've learned in that. And I think that's one of the elements of that's the same thing. It's the reason that I liked just setting my clothes out the night before, so that when I wake up, I haven't got to use any energy. It's like, oh, there's clothes, put those on, decisions made. Now I can save that bit of energy that I've got for something more useful or more helpful. But if you're the kind of person where it's the opposite, and like the things there were like, oh no, there's too many things, then I can totally see that if you're not getting to open a Rome, if the blank page is what you like, kind of, or like there's just one thing, then I can totally see that actually it's probably helpful that it's tucked away at the bottom of the page, because on a new page you probably don't have loads at that point in time. So I think it's quite nice that there's more than one way of doing anything. So if it works, it's great. If not, your original system works perfectly well. So you don't have to throw things away if it's just to try something new.
And I think this illustrates the idea that you helped me learn how to execute something in Rome that for whatever reason was difficult for me to grasp. And I tried it for, I don't know, what's it been, 2 weeks. And I guess I probably gave up middle of last week. I didn't give up on the process. I just switched back to my old process. So that 10 days gave me the opportunity to say, yes, I have the confidence that I know how to use the delta function, but I prefer doing it the old way. And now that I take that learning that you taught me, and I'm already applying it in other areas.
And I think that's the key thing with all of this, is
Yes.
that that's one of the nice kind of features of Rome, is that the structure is flexible. You can kind of add as much or as little as you need to. So what's important is try a few different things, see which way works best for you and the way you think and the way you want to work, and then change Rome to fit that. It's much more flexible than anything else in that regard. I mean, it's good and bad, I suppose, but
I think Connor White Sullivan would smash the like button on what you just said a bunch. Yeah. Okay, you ready to show me the heart check? And while you're kind of getting that set up, I'll explain what the heart check is. It's something that I learned as part of my recovery process. It's I guess originated by John Baker, who is a pastor at Saddleback Church in California. And you ask yourself 5 questions. And I did this for a year and a half, 2 years. I did that. I programmed this so that I did this at the most stressful part of my day after lunch, when I feel like I'm, about to lose control. And I asked myself 5 questions about my status. How am I feeling in 5 different areas? And the beauty of this plan is that it's not just about answering yes or no questions. It's about having a plan off the front end. If my anxiety level is high, I'm going to do this. If it's ridiculously high, I'm going to do this and this. And if it's off the charts for a number of days, then I'm going to reach out for some big time help, like a physician or a mental health care provider. Or the beauty of it is you can make this however you need it to be, wherever you are with your mental health or your anxiety, or letting your feelings or having your feelings so out of control that your life is difficult.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I found with it, is that it's very lightweight, but that's kind of what means you can make it whatever you need it to be. So that I think that's what I found with a lot of these journaling techniques, is that they don't have to be onerous. They're just a little kind of foundational placeholder. And then I guess much like we just talked about with the note to my next day self, and the way doing it one way or the other doesn't really matter. It's whichever way is helpful for you.
Sure.
You can do that. So I guess for everybody else, when they're watching this, I only put this together because we kind of talked about it via Twitter, and I thought it was an interesting thing to see if we could build it with Rome, because the nature of Rome and the way you can link things together suggested to me that this would lend itself to that kind of way of viewing it. So hopefully you can see my Rome database.
Yep.
So this has the new privacy mode switched on. So this is hiding some of my other journal entries.
Good.
But this is the heart check here. This is ready for me to do it today. I kind of deliberately didn't do it today, just so that we could demo it. Now, it's fairly straightforward. On my metadata page, which is where I kind of keep my metadata for various different things, I've kind of now started creating a little template section. And so this is where I've actually created the heart check. So if I just open this up in my main Rome window, let's just collapse these down. At its heart, obviously I've just got this one line here. So I've just kind of created a heart check page. You'll see why in a minute. But then for the 5 different things, basically, if I look at each one of those, so I've created each one as an attribute. So that's just whatever I want to call it, followed by the 2 colons. And then the questions of the yes or the no, or like the non-answer, it's just, it uses the or little shortcode from Rome. it's probably worth mentioning that at some point, Connor mentioned randomly on Twitter that they consider this a beta feature. So I hope this will be around for the longer term, but who knows? It's not in their official menu, so technically we may not be able to rely on it, but I think it hopefully will stay in here because I find it useful for a few different features. And doing something like this just makes it easy to kind of pick from your kind of predefined answers. Mm-hmm. But basically you just create each line in the same way. So they're just the children of the am I check. And now, because we've got this on here, you can see just with the inline references, you can see all previous occurrences of it. So if I actually click on that, I can see everything that I've done for the last few weeks on this. So that's one way that you can view the history. So you can kind of do that in a few other different ways as well. Because it's set up again using the Delta feature so that I have it recurring on my daily notes page every day. If I click on the little star that you get each day that you kind of press the button to move on to the next day, you get the same equivalent thing. So you can again see them all here in the linked references, and obviously you can then expand these out to see each day. I've got one of David Vargas's plugins switched on, so I can actually now sort these linked references by date as well. So as long as my pages are sorted. In fact, no, I've had this before. I think this might have been one of the reasons why I switched to Brave, because it did work in Brave, but I had noticed that this doesn't always work. So in theory, if you install the plugin, you can actually sort by the created date. So that way these actually would all be in date order, which is really handy then if you just want to kind of flip back and look at your history of it. So that's one way that you can very easily then look back and see how you've been doing day at a time, which is okay. That's helpful to a certain extent, but it's not great. Let's go forward and do today's heart check. So if I go back onto my daily note page, the way this is working, because you've got the template here, I've already set this up. Now, what you actually see when I look at this, it's actually just a block reference. So I'm block referencing this page, which is why I get all 16. So that's how I get to see those linked references, because what I'm sending onto each daily page is the block reference to it. And then I've just got it set up as a daily repeating delta function.
So can you go through really quickly what the 1 + 0 means?
Yeah, so basically it's saying each time I click the button, which in theory I should do every single day, then it's basically just going to send it one day into the future. And because it's 0 at the end, it's not adding something different onto it. So it's always just going to be every single day. If I wanted to do it weekly, then it would be 7 + 0. And if I wanted to do it every 30 days, it would be like 30 + 0. So hopefully that makes enough sense. I've got my article that we can always link to as well, where I've kind of go into a whole lot more detail how Delta works, because it is still a bit weird. So once you've got that, you'll see that this is just a block reference. So when you click on it, you get the menu. And so all I literally do is just apply children as text. I managed to click it eventually. So basically all I'm doing is applying the children as text. So I'm getting a unique one of these every single day. So it's just taking the children from over here in the templates and then just creating new ones underneath here. So because these are all set to no here, then I'm getting them exactly as that here. So this is because I was fiddling around with them. In theory, these probably should all just be set like this so that you're kind of forced to make your own answer and not just default them to no every time. but really it is then just a matter of going through and taking a moment to think about each of these and say yes or no to any of them. Now, one of the other things that I kind of realized that you could actually do with this that might actually be useful is there's no reason why not. So I'm just going to say yes to, yeah, I'm feeling a little tense, maybe because my roam's not working for me that well. But what that means you can do is, as with everything in Roam, you can obviously just add another block into it. And so however you're feeling about that or why you're feeling tense right now, you can kind of put that into the block. So you've got that there for future reference. So when you are looking back, you can see a little bit more about the what and the why. So that's also a conveniently handy thing. So that's all you need to do. Then when you're done, you just click Delta so that it sends. All we're doing is I'm just clicking it. I'm not shift clicking it because I don't want to send the children into the future. I just want to send this same block at the top, which you'll see the same block reference, and then Delta's just done its magic little conversion stuff. If I click onto this, you'll see this is going to take me onto tomorrow's page, which is waiting there, ready for me to use afresh on tomorrow's daily note page.
That makes sense.
That's how you run it. Now, what I'll also show you now then is the heart check page itself. I'll click it from here because this is the actual heart check page. So now what the other part of this is, now the only downside here is that, so this is using the attribute tables. Because we've set hurting, exhausted, anxious, and so on as attributes, we can use the attritables function to generate a little table to show us how it's been going since we've been using it. I'm just using the default or nearly default theme here, so you don't get to see all of it in one go just because of the width limits, but you can just scroll left and right. So let me show you first what this looks like. It is as simple as attritable, and then you just need to pick one of the attributes. It doesn't matter which one of these you actually pick. You can just pick any of them. It makes no difference. The way attribute tables work is that you can think of them as being greedy, and it looks for all other attributes at the same level. So all of these are sibling blocks to this parent block. So it's another reason why it's grouped like this. So we have a parent one. It serves dual purposes for us, that we obviously want a parent one to put it on the page in the first place. But then when we apply them, it means that when we do this, we get the results that we want. We don't want all of the other attributes we might happen to be using in our Roam database being pulled in, because then the table doesn't make any real sense. So you just pick one of them and then let Roam do its magic things. I've got another one of David Vargas's plugins switched on for this, so that, I mean, it doesn't really matter for this table. We don't really need to sort by any of these things. There's not a lot of point to it, but this is why you see these extra little things for, I can actually sort them in order for if I want to.
Fascinating.
But essentially, this bottom one here, because these are all set to nothing, and they are not from the block referenced version, we can kind of ignore this row. This is just because this is different to all the others. This is the part of the table that we're interested in, which then just shows us how many times we've used each one of them. There is this little bit of weirdness. I honestly don't know why it does it like this, because we've only got yes and no or nothing in our boxes. So I would have expected in this exhausted one is that yes should be showing 4 as one single box, and then no would be showing 11. I don't quite know why I have 2 different versions of that. I would have generally just be expecting it to look like this, which is that I've scored this no 14 times and yes once. And that's what these little numbers underneath are. It's, again, I'm not quite sure why Roam does it this way, but that's the way it kind of groups them together, so you can it counts them up. so you can kind of see for each one of these. And now the other neat thing that you get to do is you can go and have a look. And so this exhausted one here, which is I've used a few times, I can click on these and they will open up as little outline references.
Wow.
So this is why if you start putting comments underneath, then you can go, okay, well, why did I say yes on these days? So you can start to easily see what those days are. And then if you've put comments underneath anything, you can expand those down and start to see if there's any patterns to any of that. So
wow.
So with the tense ones, if I do that, then you can see here. So this is where I've said yes to being tense quite a few times. So that for me, what I was doing is like literally just kind of listening to my body. That's how I've been treating the tense one. And so you can see that on a few of these days, I've said tense. I've only put one here, which is that it's tense muscles. And this has actually helped me. It literally has been. I've spotted these patterns when I look back at my workout logs. I'm basically scoring these yes the day after my workout, which was like I've been doing a lot of kettlebell presses lately. And so I've realized actually for some reason that causes my shoulders to tense up much more. And I don't know that I'd have noticed it if I hadn't been kind of tracking to this degree. So this is one of the interestingly sort of surprises that's come out of this, just doing this the last couple of weeks. But you can see how over time this could be quite a useful tool for looking at your data and tracking it and seeing it. And hopefully this is just the very beginning of what we can do in Rome in sort of tracking purposes.
Wow, Andy, that's amazing.
So I don't know if you've got any other questions about this, or can I show you anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here kind of just, the piece, the technique is generally designed, I think, to help us, first of all, acknowledge how we're feeling, instead of stuffing it, whatever that is, whether it's emotional or physical. And all of these questions are broad intentionally so that it's not just about, is it hurting? Well, when I teach people how to do this, they're like, well, you mean my back hurts or emotionally hurting? Well, yeah, whatever, and so they're designed to help you check in with yourself and acknowledge whatever those feelings are. But the second thing is they're designed to help you learn to share with at least one other person when necessary. I'm feeling this way. That's what this did for me in a lot of respects. Rather than tell someone I'm exhausted or I'm tense or anxious or hurting, I would just lash out with a sharp tongue, So what you're showing me is that this is a way for you, for instance, here to self-correct your workout routine.
Yeah, and I really like that from what's a simple little check-in that you can, it just forces you to notice things in whichever way makes sense to you. And then Rome is now making it nice and easy. Since it's the tool you're using for everything else, it's just another simple place to go and have a look and start to notice the patterns and maybe do something with that in a useful way.
Well, a couple of things out of this particular tutorial and demo that you've taught me. I teach this inside my journaling course, but it's broad and generic. This piece automatically becomes a public document inside the course as well as here. Plus, as I release this on my little Podia blog or email, whatever I release it, I want to make sure that we have the metadata in place so that someone can implement that. I'll probably put that in my public database, and then make it easy for you to also share this video and this technique with your list, because I think this can be incredibly useful to people, especially as we're still navigating all the pandemic stuff.
Yeah. I think definitely for this particular moment in time, it's a really easy technique that you can just take and do what you need to do with it. And if it can help people now at this point in where we're at in this current times, then it's a surprisingly powerful technique.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be terribly weighty. It can be, how you've used it. I love it. Thank you for putting this together for me. And I also think I have greater clarity on applying children, and I think I better understand Rome as a whole now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's still one of those things with Rome where the tools are all there, but they're still quite bare bones, and hopefully they'll keep adding more useful, convenient interfaces to it so that you don't have to be. So it does take a little bit much effort to think about how to get the effects that you want, especially if you're not particularly technical. And so making these templates available so that you don't even have to think about it is ideal. So we'll make sure these are easily available for everybody.
Yes. And to just play with it. And it's not a bad thing if you're struggling with the techniques. I'm learning to be gentle with myself through just playing with Rome. It's okay if today I'm battling Rome and block references. I don't have to get that right. That's not a hill I need to die on. Rome is there to help me. My Rome community is there to help me and to be my friend and to help me do things well. If it's not working today, maybe it'll work tomorrow, and maybe it won't. And so why am I doing this? To make my life better. And if fighting it is not making my life better, then, hands up.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the other side with this is like everything that I've just shown you, you can just do like in the really simple way with Rome, just write, how am I feeling today? And just write those things out as simple blocks. You don't even have to add anything else fancy to it. That's just, you won't necessarily get the ease of being able to kind of look at the data over time, but you can still do that because you can still go back through all your previous daily notes. And if you at least kind of give the heading, like the heart check, like I've got as the sort of the parent block, then obviously you can just go there and you'll see them in your linked references there anyway. So you don't have to be fancy with it, and people definitely don't need to be intimidated just because you can do it in a slightly fancier way. It's like, that's the beauty of Rome. It's like you can just go a really, really long way with just the bare bones of just write in your blocks and use a page reference.
Yep.
You're good to go with that.
I am with you, my friend. So if you've got a little bit of time, I'm very curious about the discipline. There's a kind of a mini movement going on Twitter about theming a decade. Walk me through what that looks like. I'm intrigued because last week I just kind of had a content creation crash. I couldn't make myself do anything. And instead I found that I needed to do some other things with my creativity. And then I was able to come back strong this week and get to work on some things that that weren't getting done last week. And I want to be able to program those mental breaks from high intensity stuff to maybe medium, or just switch gears so that my brain isn't exhausted all the time. And I think you may have a solution for me.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what the discipline is from the original kind of intent, and then what seems to be happening is that more and more people have been finding it, and then we're starting to kind of put our own little twists on it, which I think then you can kind of take it whichever way you want. So it comes from an article by someone called, I think, William Van Heck, or I'm not quite sure if that's exactly right, but I found it from Sarah Avenir. She happened to just randomly tweet something and mention this article, so I went and read that. And essentially, I think you might be able to just see the big books on my top shelf of my bookcase up there. Those books over on the, I guess this is flipped, so either the left or right hand side of that top shelf, those big thick books are Neil Stephenson books. And the inspiration came from one of his books called Anathem. And in that, essentially, there's kind of a cloistered community of monks, and they have what the discipline, essentially, they kind of stay in their cloisters for 10 years, 100 years, and 1,000 years, while the rest of civilization kind of comes and goes around them. They stay kind of locked inside without kind of being part of the rest of the world, and then they'll come out at their defined periods for a few days to basically see what the world is like. And this discipline is then, it's kind of patterned on the same thing. So one, it's this 10-day cycle, which is, that's kind of one of the key points of it, is it's deliberately designed to not be on a normal weekly cycle. And the original intent is just a way of theming your day in terms of how you're going to use your available time, because most of us live in the real world where we have jobs and families and a million and one things to do. So this is just kind of giving you kind of a pre-decision for what you'll do when you've done everything else that you need to do. And so there's several kind of categories. It starts with a connect day. So that's the first day of the decade, which is the 10-day period. That's where, in the original intent, it's like, act like a normal human being. He uses it for kind of binging on YouTube videos and just doing more connection than normal. It's where you'll catch up with the news. So for me, I try and avoid the news as much as possible. It doesn't help me mentally most of the time. Really important news will get to me. I don't need to kind of waste my time on the 24/7 news cycles.
This former broadcast journalist endorses that philosophy.
Yeah, it's a lot more freeing. But Connect Day is really the day that you can then go and kind of catch up on that sort of news. And then the rest of the 9 days then is where you'll then go through your particular themed cycles. So in the original one, and I kind of follow the original one fairly closely myself. I've added one little tweak of my own into it, but the original one then, for the remainder of those days, there's create days. So that's when you're kind of doing something more creative. There's a reading day where you'll spend your time reading. I mean, you might read normally. It's not to say don't read every other day anyway, but you'll just use all of your available time on reading. Then there's a study day for whatever constitutes study for you, really. So maybe you've got courses that you want to make progress on. It just means you can kind of use that day for that. And then the final one is like a play day. So that's just where you can relax and do some. I mean, it could still be something creative. And I think that's the beauty of the system, is that, I guess, much like the heart check, you can you can interpret them however you want, or you can add a different kind of focus in. But the aim then is for the remaining 9 days is that there's a specific pattern of days that you'll follow, where the only other kind of guideline is that you'll do at least 1 day of each of those kind of focuses, so that you're not doing those things. So you can say that within a 10-day period, at least one of those days is going to be a play day, and at least one is going to be one of each of the other days. But obviously then you can bias toward one or two more than another. So you're really just setting out a template of patterns. So for example, if you're feeling more creative at the start of the decade, then bias toward doing more create days. So a creative focused decade might mean that you may only have 1 day of play, 1 day of reading, and 1 day of study, and then all the rest are create days, so that you can crank out a lot of creative work on that available time. Now, there's nothing to say that you can't just do that as, like, if you've got the freedom to do whatever you want any day, then why not do more? I mean, one of the things I would like to do in the future, which I've not done yet, but I'm fortunate enough to work for myself, and I have a bit more freedom than most people will have with their time. So I would like to try and run my whole day like that, and it maybe be biased a little bit towards some more work functions, but I'd like to have a whole day of creation where I'll do whatever kind of creative activities I need to do for my business, as well as for my own personal things, and then another day just have a whole day to play. And the beauty of that 10-day system is that you kind of drift in and out of sync from a normal working week. So that's kind of one of the key points of the system, is that the 10 days means that it isn't that, oh, well, Monday is always a create day and a Wednesday is going to always be a whatever day. Because it drifts in and out, then you'll kind of get to a weekend, and then that's how you'll end up kind of getting to have more chance of spending more time on whatever that particular thing is. And obviously by changing the patterns, if you're going to bias more towards creation or more towards study or whatever you want to do, then it gives you a chance to get a bigger block of time on that, because obviously weekends you usually have a little bit more freedom in that sense.
I like it. I think Brian Toe put together a really neat newsletter about theming his decades. And I think that's intriguing for me. What I ended up doing is, I don't know, a 6 or 8 week stretch, probably less than that. It just felt like 30 years where I was creating content on a deadline and just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And it exhausted me. And as a result, as we're recording this, I still haven't released the first interview that we did, because I just crashed last week when I could have been doing the video. So what I'm thinking is, and I've even talked to my mom about this, I'm either full on content creation mode, or I'm like, I'm doing other things. You know, I didn't just like go to bed for a week, but I started talking to her about what happens if I can be more intentional, so that now I can schedule regular content, and that you and my other guests and my subscribers have no idea that I just crashed in terms of content creation, that I'm consistently delivering that content, but that I'm batching it all, like maybe video intensive 1 week. And I know I'm getting off of the discipline and the decade part of the discipline, but I'm just curious to see what that might look like if I work like crazy building content focused kind of things for 10 days. And then the next 10 days, I'm themed on, I don't know, something else. And then working through that. Does that make sense? Like the rhythm of a week, I need my Mondays and Tuesdays to be what I call heavy lifting days. Wednesdays, I need to be editing video for weekly stuff. Thursdays and Fridays can be people days, but does something like the discipline, if I theme the decade properly, does that give me enough break in the rhythm that I'm not burning myself out on one particular thing?
I definitely think it could. I mean, I think that's the important thing, is that you could just give it a try and see. What I like about the whole idea of the discipline, I mean, whether it's for just your available time or you use it as a bigger theming thing, what it encourages is some kind of balance, because that was one of the things for me, and one of the reasons I wanted to start it, is that particularly like these last several months with all of these lockdowns and barely leaving these four walls, I've kind of had a lot more time. And similar to you saying, I mean, I filled my time by creating a Rome course to like really learn Rome. So I've then got a ton of other ideas, and I've been doing a lot more kind of content generation myself. But in the same way that, like, I realized I was not spending enough time not doing anything. And I think that's just as important as I don't think anybody can be on permanently. It's just not possible. And you probably produce more by having more of a break. So for me, like doing this is like the play days of things. It's really easy for me to never stop doing things and spend time to play, because I would feel guilty. That's like, well, I've still got a huge task list full of things. There's never nothing for me to do. So I could just fill all of my time with doing things. I might enjoy doing some of the things, but it's still not me resting and rejuvenating. And so this enforced discipline of, well, a wiser you has already decided that you're going to run this schedule. The decision is already made. For one, it's like you're not wasting what little available time you have trying to decide what do I really feel like doing today or tonight. It's like, oh, well, I could do this and I could do that. And before you know it, you've just wasted the whole evening scrolling on Twitter or just watching pointless YouTube videos or something like that. Whereas when you've already said, well, no, today's a study day. Okay, well, I have this course to do. Decisions made. That's what I'm going to do. When I finish what I need to do, I'll do that. Or it's like, today it's a play day. It's like, great. I've now given myself permission to, I don't need to do any work. I deliberately should not be working. It's a play day. So if I have any time, for me, it's going to be to build Lego or to play some video games, or it's just something completely unproductive on purpose to kind of get that enforced rest.
Do you think that makes you a better dad because you know this is a play day and you can either involve your kids or not? Is that helping?
I definitely think it does. I mean, that for me, that's part of it, is like the play days. Like I actually properly look forward to them, and it's all, the way I've set it up with, I mean, in a very similar way, I use the delta function in Rome to do it. So I set out what that decade's going to be at the beginning, and then it's basically a surprise for me when I open Rome in the morning. It's like, oh, today's whatever day it is. So I don't have, there's like, it's pre-planned, but it's a surprise at the same time, because I don't need to look anywhere else for it. I know Rome will tell me what it is that I'm going to be doing, and then I'll just use that as I plan my day. And then using the play day one in particular, then that's always great, because I can look at it and go like, I know I can just do the work I need to do today. I don't need to try and bust a gut and do everything. I'll try and stop all the sooner to get what's necessary done, so that now I get to go and spend more time with my kids, and it's much more fun playing with them. I don't just want to play on my own.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, I
And
think.
do they say, how come you're finished early and we get to play Legos at X in the afternoon instead of waiting until almost bedtime? Have they done that yet?
A little bit, yeah, because like they all know that I try and follow this sort of discipline thing, so they kind of know if I tell them in the morning it's a play day today, then they know that
That
they're
is
going to
so
get
cool.
some time. So it's I think, as you said at the beginning, it's just a way of setting intentions, and if you're the kind of person who kind of keeps wanting to achieve things, then it's a good way of just making sure that you remain more balanced than you might otherwise be. And because I think in the end, it will just lead to that kind of burnout or crashing feeling. And maybe then you'll be off it for 10 more days. And I think if you lose, for me, definitely, if you lose the habit, it's a lot of work to get back onto the habit. So this is a way of still maintaining a habit, and you haven't lost anything. You're kind of using it as a habit in a different way.
I'm
So I
on it.
definitely think it's worth a try. And like, the interesting thing that I've found is that more and more people are seeing things and going, well, I'm going to give it a try. And so I think I would encourage people to kind of follow the general rules, but also make it your own, and then find us on Twitter and tell us what you're doing. Because, like you said, Brian's done a few more tweaks and twists on it, and I know Kif Premji, he's also following it, and he's got a few different twists he's doing on his as well, I think. So the more the merrier.
I think I'm going to start with kind of the basics and not try to build a massive, infrastructure on it, and just take it as it's written and see what happens from there.
Yeah, just run a decade on the. I mean, that's what I did. I literally started with just followed the original articles, kind of his guidelines, and I just ran with that and decided, what will I do on a create day? What will I do on a study day? And just kind of, that's the only decisions I made. And then, so you don't, I set mine all up in Rome just because I thought actually it's a good way to test how Delta works. It seemed like it would lend itself to that thing. But again, just like we've talked about with these other things, like, you don't have to do that at all. Just write it down on a list and pin it to your wall. And so you just know what you're going to do when that day rolls around, and don't overthink it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on it. I'll get started and post an update on Twitter.
Yeah.
And now it's time for me to return the balance of your time. And you probably don't have any free time left because you spent your evening with me. Thank you.
Today it's a reading day for me. So actually now this was the last thing on my list of things that I had to do today. So now my available time is to go and read. So I'm off to read now till it's bedtime.
You're the best. Thanks, Andy.
This has been another fun nerding out session with Rome
love it.
and chatting. So I love doing these.